All right.
Got it.
Got it.
All right, let's pray. Father, just thank you again for another night. Just keep everybody safe out here on the roads, and keep Deanne safe on her way back home. And Father, we just again ask, we don't need to ask, your presence is here. Father, just guide and direct our conversation tonight as we just discern and learning more about you, Father God, and how to just get this right. We just want to get it right. We love you, and we just want to do things the way you want us to do them, Father God. So lead us and direct us tonight, and we just give this all to you in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. All right, how'd y'all like the second one here?
Oh, it's good.
It was good. Yeah.
Starting to get a little more into the thick of things.
Yes, put some in. Yep.
So last week we dealt with what is truth, basically, and once again through this whole program they'll be asking us just to kind of try to put aside as much as we can our predispositions about our thoughts about things for now, and just be available to relearn some things if we need to, and hopefully in going through some of these different aspects of theology tonight, maybe through the video you caught wind of some stuff that you might have been holding on to that they brought up that maybe isn't correct. So just great stuff. And I like the way that they started out by talking about, I really like this. And I think we've talked about this a few weeks ago when we got into the eating the milk of the word, when he was talking about the childlike faith and not dumbing things down. I think we all, or a lot of us, have a tendency to do that. And I think and not cutting on them, but the charismatic side has a little bit more tendency to do that, right? Like I don't know all these big theological words. Just all we need is Jesus, right? We talked about that last week a little bit. As a matter of fact, I had a friend on my Facebook page say this. I put up Terry, you probably saw it. I put up a thing, I think yesterday, about, not just being involved with the simplicity of our faith, but the deeper you get into the word, the deeper that our faith is and all that. And this guy, quote unquote, said, deep is okay, but make sure you keep close to the simplicity of Jesus Christ, his death on the cross and forgiveness of sins. And I agree with that to a point, but we can't keep it simple, right? It's a good thing to say, all we need is Jesus. We just got to keep this simple, just the cross. That's all we need. No, it's not all we need, right? Those are the basics, and we should have the basics down. So I really like that they just talk about the childlike faith and not dumbing things down. All right, so let's get into this. Probably have a little bit more to talk about tonight than we did last time. So he had asked the class the question, what is theology, in their words, before he talked about it and all that. What did some of you guys come up with? When somebody says theology to you, or you hear that word, or I say it up on the pulpit, what did that imply to you? What does that mean? Don't all jump in at once.
Well, for me, it meant a study of your beliefs. I put down and God, but I know we're supposed to clear our mind, so.
Well, not with that. That we definitely have a presupposition about what we think theology is.
Yeah, well, it's about beliefs and practices, I guess, what you believe and what you practice.
Okay.
Well, what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I was pretty much on the fence with it because I didn't really understand what theology was. I thought it was study, like to be a pastor or something like that. Like
most people do, right?
And that's what that's how I interpreted it. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, so I was not fed a lot of religious things, and so when somebody would say theology, that was my interpretation was, oh, you're studying to become a pastor.
So what the heck made you sign up for this class, brother?
I wanted to understand. There's much more to it than that. I'm finding out in my growth, I am finding out a whole lot more.
I want to understand for myself. I mean, in beliefs, I mean, this
Right.
has been pretty challenging, this, especially the second one, but this second session, but, yeah, I've had, different things told to you and things like that. And then, you know, you've been told certain things by certain churches or different denominations, and then you go someplace else and you're told something else. It's just like, okay, what's the truth here? You know, what is real and what's just something you're telling me? So that's why I thought theology is the study to find out what is the real truth for yourself. Hmm.
And I agree with what Brad said. I think my belief of theology is the study of the Word of God, the study of who God is and who He is to you. And what was interesting is how they, in that last video, opened it up more. You know, is atheism theology? Is, you know, made me think of it way beyond what I.
All the-
Anybody else?
I guess for myself, theology, the way I would think of it would be the study of a teaching, depending on, you know, whether it's Christianity or something, but, you know, just in general, the study of teaching. Okay.
Anybody
I always
else?
thought, I always thought it was the study of the Bible, and it's what mainly pastors did.
Okay.
That was me when I first answered that question. It's like, whoa, wait a minute.
And I think we've all been there. I mean, you know, before I got a mentor and stuff and kept hearing that word, I just thought all those scholars up in their white towers, you know, it's just what they do. And theology, I don't need that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Let's see. Rick Melton, you on there?
Yes.
Hey, brother, you wanna read those 4 upper boxes?
I hope I got the right one. The study of science of God. Is
Yep.
that- Okay. Study it or science of God, Millard Erickson. Christian theology, Grand Rapids. You want me to read all that or not? Just a.
No, just a quote.
Okay. Okay. The science of God and of relations between God and the universe. Rational discussion respecting the deity. Thinking about God and expressing those thoughts in some way.
Okay, so he went through those and kind of talked about the idea of how broad most of them were, and then he went down to this: who is a theologian? So that's where probably some of you, Kevin and Deanne, probably got a little more enlightened as far as what theology is, right?
Oh, by far. Yeah.
Questions and basically a theologian, what is it? Anyone who has expressed thoughts about God, even an atheist, they have thoughts about God. They don't believe him. That's their theology about God, right? So when you go over to the next part, for now, I'll skip that top one, but Terry, you want to read that quote by R.C. Sproul there?
Me, Terry, or,
Terry, yeah.
okay, I didn't know if the other Terry was there,
Oh,
so I
she's
wasn't
not here
sure
today,
which
so.
one. You gotta start calling me just Urban.
Okay. Or it was TU, right? She was TT.
Yeah, exactly. R.C. Sproul, we live in what may be the most anti-intellectual period in the history of Western civilization. We must have passion, indeed hearts on fire for the things of God, but that passion must resist with intensity the anti-intellectual spirit of the world.
So, you know, they were talking about, and Sproul is probably one of my all-time favorite teachers. So he was talking about this anti-intellectual period, and I often, I think I say up on the pulpit that we're in probably one of the most dumb periods in history right now as far as people knowing their scripture, knowing the word. Like I think it was Kevin that said, you know, or no, your wife, that we just kind of hear what the pastor says. You go down the road and another pastor says something different, and we just tend to believe what they say. We don't go any further than that. That's anti-intellectual. That's not okay to be that way. But it's basically, it's not thinking for yourself, right? Or coming to your own conclusions. You listen to the conclusions of that pastor, and then the conclusions of that pastor, and even when they don't match up, it's like, who do I believe? Well, we'll just put that off to the side and just leave it alone, right? Because they must know what they're talking about. I don't. So you're just going with the flow. And I think we talked
Yep.
about that. We talked about that last week, that it's important to come to your own conclusions with the truth, and how that it really wasn't. People like to say, well, I just do the Bible, and I came to learn through the Bible. And we talked last week about, no, it wasn't just the Bible. Every one of us here, I can probably say with confidence, it wasn't just the Bible that brought you to the Lord. It was other books. It was a chaplain or a pastor or another believer that brought in. So then you need to ask the question, well, whose faith is it then, right? So, I mean, you can go wild with this stuff and really start messing with your own mind. But you need to start thinking for yourself, is what he's saying here. And he talked a little bit about the entertainment stuff that's going on right now. We just cannot agree and be tolerant with what we hear. This is important stuff. So we can't be intellectual with it. And then this other one, by source unknown. The question is not who is a theologian, but what kind of theologian am I going to be? Are you going to be a good theologian or a bad theologian? That's a more accurate question, because as one writer put it, not all theologians are equal. And I believe it was R.C. Sproul that said, everyone is a theologian. You're either a bad theologian or you're a good theologian, you know, but everyone is a theologian. And so I hope by this part of it, we all understand that everybody in life is a theologian, because everybody has some kind of thoughts about God, whether he is God or even not God. That's a theology about God. Because what is theology? What does the word theology mean? The study of God. Study of God. So
Everybody's-
And I think what's interesting, Brian, is R.C. Sproul's comment there is 1982. So you think of how dumb society's gotten since the internet came out, right? So nobody does critical thinking anymore. It's just whatever gets pushed to you on your favorite website you belong to, you just believe it.
yeah. Well, I think one of the things he said in that first part of the session that probably hit me the most at the time I first started going through this was, passive learning is much easier than active learning.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we do it, right? It's
Exactly.
you don't want to do the work.
If you don't do your work, then you're not responsible.
Right.
Hey, I like that. There we go. Then we can blame somebody else.
Right.
Ah,
And then we got into that little loop thing where we talked about tabloid, folk, lay, ministerial, professional, academic. And then we want to be within one of those three middle sections there, a lay, ministerial, professional. We don't want to be a tabloid theologian. We don't want to be folk theologian. We don't want to be academic.
no.
So now we get to the really good stuff. All right, let's have fun with this section. So we started out with tabloid theologians. So first of all, did everybody understand what a tabloid theologian means?
Yeah.
Why don't you read that part, Kevin?
Tabloid theologian, one who constructs his or her theology based upon naive hearsay information that has no basis in fact and very little, if any, evidence to be believed. Many times people are tabloid theologians because of the theology's appearance of originality. As well, it can be cutting edge in many people's minds.
So even back then, when they would put this together, which had to be at least 10 years ago, he said then that this kind of theology is really gaining momentum. And I think that's even more true where we're at in life today. So what are some examples of tabloid theology? And he gave the couple examples of Gabriel's Malta's on the trumpet thing with the hitchhiker, and seeing angels and all that kind
Right.
of stuff. And notes from dead sons and all that kind of crazy stuff. Um, what are maybe some tabloid theology that you've hung on to, or maybe even still have?
I-
No one wants to cop to nothing. I'll have it, come on, man.
Well, if you didn't put that last part that we say you still have, I mean, you see all these emails that fly around all the time that are just ridiculous, right? You're gonna be blessed because you forward email on to somebody,
Yeah,
or the Bible code, you know, some of this other stuff that's out there.
If you don't copy this, you don't love Jesus.
yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Great one.
Yeah.
You call it Facebook theology.
Would there be tabloid churches too then,
Oh, yeah.
so to speak? So would that be like a church that's has, you know, eye-catching band and sensational songs? Would that be fall in that category?
Probably not so much in that, because tabloid theology is pretty much things that we've heard or we believed ourselves. Like you said, you know, the whole hitchhiker deal with that stuff going on.
Mhm.
Ghosts, angels with their harps and all that kind of stuff, and sitting on clouds and blah blah blah. But they're mostly stories that we've heard and we believe.
Okay.
I like what he said about, and it's parents' right, telling your children that you're not good, you know,
Yeah.
God's telling it, telling you if you're not good.
Right.
Any other comments on it?
I never really fell into the tabloid one too much, I don't believe. Just, I don't know, it always seemed too phony.
Yeah.
It's always interesting though, and I guess it all would depend on who was telling the story. If you felt they were credible or you respected them and they were telling the story, you're more likely to believe it. It's just like, well, because why would they say something that wasn't true or something they didn't experience? So
Wonder if our younger generation with all the social media, you know, you're scrolling by and you're seeing the flash of something, and you know, what do they say? We have 3 seconds to catch somebody's
Yeah.
attention, you know, and so they're just flashing, you know, those things in front of them, and I think that might be, you know, part of that.
well, if you're out there looking and you're actually don't have any idea who God is, but you're curious and you want to know, you're more likely to some of that too. Especially the sensationalism, last end times and things like that, with attention, and it goes on from there.
Yeah, I think one of those kind of theologies that I came across since I've been up here is getting a haircut at a local barber here in Cable. And as a lady was cutting my hair, she said, and I think I've brought this up in a couple of my messages when we come to something that deals with that, but she asked, what do you do? And I'm like, I pastor the church on there at the Oaks and Drama. And she says, oh, I talk to angels. And then she started going on about conversations she's had with the angels. And, you know, I think the last time, just a couple of weeks ago, I talked a little bit about that and said, you know, what happens anytime you see angels encountering human beings in the scriptures?
Usually not good.
Yeah.
They're fear, man. They're doing face plants is what they're doing. So, you know, and so there was an opportunity probably to, you know, what I should have done, and I didn't do, I just left it alone, right? Trying not to shake my head while she's cutting my hair. But probably it would have been a good thing to give her the truth, even though she wouldn't have believed it, right? Saying, well, I probably watch out who you're talking with because them aren't angels, right?
Yeah, no.
But that's it. And I could have went on with that. Yeah, you know what? I met this lady who talks to angels, man, and man, maybe I should try to talk to angels. And
Yeah, think of where that could go.
and at the end of this, what he talked about is just that. When we do hear that, I mean, obviously she was not credible, but if I heard Deanne say that and I was a younger believer, you know, I'd probably be like, well, Deanne is a prayer warrior and an awesome woman of the Lord, been in Christ for a long time, and man, she talks to angels. So then I start believing, and I start spreading that news. And what did he say at the end? The hardest part about tabloid theology is this is part of these people's lives for so long, right? They believe these stories for so long. It's a false faith, and it's so hard for them to give up that theology and give up that wrong belief. So dangerous stuff.
Mhm.
Folk theology, probably my favorite one.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Brad, you want to read that?
Okay. One who uncritically and unreflectively constructs his or her theology according to traditions and religious folklore. The folk theology is often very dogmatic and a militant about his or her beliefs.
Everybody understand what dogmatic means?
Mhm.
That's spot on.
You know, it's law, right?
Yeah.
So many people are dogmatic about, we brought that word up a lot when we went through Revelations, because so many people are dogmatic about things that they read in Revelations or have heard in Revelations. And we just can't be dogmatic about things we don't really know about, right? They're certain, but when people have this folk theology, man, they're ready to die for that stuff. So those are old false things that are old fables that are passed down. They're old, they're foundational, might have been brought up in your families, in churches that you've been to or whatever. So he said it's so ingrained within you that you've had it forever. And so it's hard to get rid of it once you find out that it's not true. So even when you find out it's not true, you don't want to give it up, right? Which is really applicable to most of our beliefs. We believe for so long that even if we've been proved wrong, we'll find some kind of justification to continue to hold on to that false belief.
Mhm.
So what's some examples of folk theology that you've heard or maybe in your own life, man? And there's a lot of them.
I was gonna say sometimes that tabloid theology crosses over with the folk.
Yep.
I see that so much. It's heartbreaking. I don't know what to ever do or say about it, but it's just heartbreaking.
And I think the major difference between the two, just so you know how to separate them, is that the tabloid theology is really stories and stuff that you've heard, as to where folk theology is mainly just some false beliefs that you've been holding on to that are traditional. Something maybe you passed down to your kids or your grandma and grandpa passed down to you, just false beliefs, not so much where, you know, you got the story with the hitchhiker and Gabriel and all that, or, you know, well, one day I woke up, this being tabloid theology, one day I woke up, man, and, you know, I was really going through a hard time, and I put a piece of bread in the toaster, and when it came up, man, I saw like the shroud. I saw Jesus's face on my toast, and that's tabloid theology. Okay, it's like a story that's passed down. And if I told you that, would it be credible to you? Am I a person?
You're like, where did you get that bread at?
Going around telling other people, and over years that would be ingrained in your mind. And even if R.C. Sproul came back from the dead and said that's not true, you'd be, no, I ain't trying to hear that. Brian said it was so. So folk theology, give me some examples of folk theology you've held on to or do currently hold on to that you found out.
Belief in guardian angels.
Right, that we all have a guardian angel.
Mhm.
Yeah, watching over you.
People die and become angels. Angels have wings. Satan's red with a horn and tail.
St. Peter waiting at the pearly gates for you.
Right.
Especially, there's a lot, well, I think there's a lot in Catholicism. I can't say that anymore. I was raised Catholic, so to speak, and a lot of different images and things there that, yeah.
So in that, because one of the key words here for folk theology is traditions,
Mhm.
and religious folklore. So what's one of the traditions that could be considered folk theology in Catholicism? One of many, probably like purgatory, right?
I was gonna
Oh,
say
yeah.
purgatory is
Yeah.
a big one. Yep.
And purgatory, that's folk theology.
Yep. And I know my grandmother lit many, many candles for my dad and stuff, so he would not have to stay in purgatory too long. So. And
What's
she
some
was
other-
very serious about it. Very, very serious. You don't, he's kind of smirked at that, man. That was almost reason for a backhand. So, that was not anything to be questioned.
The rosary.
The rosary. Oh. That's folk theology, praying the rosary. Anybody else? Somebody else got folk theology they saw themselves?
I think the one he brought up that kind of caught me was the, if you commit suicide, you go to hell immediately.
It's a great one because I had that belief when I first came to Christ, right? Because I heard so much from people growing up in the Lutheran church that it was automatic. And when I finally came across the teaching at one point with someone saying that, no, that's not true. I'm like, well, how do you come up with that? Because I was dogmatic with that because I heard it so much for so many years.
Right.
So yeah, great one.
You think they must be telling the truth, but and in all honesty, I wonder how many people are kept from suicide by believing that,
Right.
and if that's why they perpetrated that. But it's like, wow.
I'm not sure if this is one, but my mom believed that my children actually had to be baptized as infants, not dedicated as they wanted to do in the Wesleyan Church. They had to be baptized
Right.
or they would go to hell.
Yep, that's folk theology.
Mhm.
That's a tradition that's been passed down. Here's another one that's really common. And, one that you see friends on Facebook say this stuff and you want to just, Holy Spirit, hold me back. Adam and Eve ate the apple.
They did what?
Why is that folk theology?
You don't know what it was.
Right. Did it say, does the Bible say they ate an apple?
No,
I mean, it could have very well been an apple, but we don't know. But people are dogmatic about that because that's just what they grew up with, man. God helps those who help themselves. Folk theology.
don't give him more than he can withstand.
Folk theology. By his wounds, we are healed. Folk theology.
Whoa.
Where 2 or 3 are gathered. Folk theology. I always like to say where 2 or 3 are gathered, someone's getting disciplined. Okay. And if you don't understand what I'm saying and you don't understand that one, we need to talk. But we go through that, I think.
So
our
the example of infant baptism, if we're saying that's folk, but doesn't that almost drift over into then become doctrine? And
well, a lot of that folk theology does drift over into doctrine, just like the 2 or 3 are gathered and by his stripes you're healed, and purgatory, that becomes doctrine. It's taught. Yeah, demon possession, he talked about that. I just want to touch on that quick because not only the devil being read and having pitchfork and all that stuff, anytime you see demon possession in the Bible, man, these people are going through some stuff, right? I mean, they're clawing at themselves and living in graveyards and doing all this and that, but yet everybody and their mama, especially and I'm not cutting on all the deliverance ministries, but the deliverance ministries and the hyper-charismatics, they want to see demons in everything. Everybody's a demon. They got demons in them. We had an individual that I've been working with here for quite a while that's just messed up because he went to a thing up in Ashland and somebody told him that he had a demon attached to him. And man, is it hard trying to undo that because he believed what these people told him. And I'm like, and this guy knows his Bible. And I says, dude, you know your Bible. You show me anywhere in the Bible where it says a demon can attach himself to you, and I'll give you credit for it. We'll say that there is one attached to you. But demon possession, man, between all the stuff that you see in the scriptures about demon possession, how many of y'all have ever come across that in your life? where you've seen a biblical example of someone being demon possessed, that they're just at a rage and they're eating at themselves and, just all this crazy stuff. You don't see that around here, but yet we're exercising demons everywhere. Everybody's got a demon. So demon possession is a huge part of folk theology because it's just not biblical.
And
We
that's
don't
where I
see it.
was, that's where I was getting at with the crossover between tabloid and folk, because in some ways it fits a tabloid definition, and they certainly use it to grab headlines
Yep.
and grab fame and fortune. They're easily believed, they're more exciting and everything else, and people just go after that like crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, where's the line between those? Because sometimes it just crosses right over.
Yeah. So, and he talked a little bit about the whole demons can influence people, right?
Right.
Yes.
Their whole lives, but these people who are in some of these deliverance, their whole lives revolve around that, man. Demons are involved in everything, and everything is demons' fault. And what does the Bible teach? That three things have influence in our lives: the world, the flesh, and the devil. When you start blaming everything on the demons, well, that's another way for us to say it's not our fault anymore. Just blame it on the demons, right?
Yeah, the demon made me do it.
Yep.
There's another great one for your folk theology. You can bind Satan.
Right.
All I want to know is, I see all the people binding him. Who's letting him loose? Because by golly, he's back the next day somewhere else. They need to get that person.
Why do you think it is so hard for folk theologians to learn?
I think they got it stuck in their head, what they were told, I believe.
I put, because they don't use any critical thinking skills to question what they're learning or believing.
True.
Even check on the validity of their folklore.
They don't want to do don't want to do no legwork to prove it wrong.
Right. No research.
I think there's an element of fear in there too, because they're kind of told, something akin to, if you don't believe this, then you don't have faith, or you don't have, whatever it is. So there's an element of fear that keeps people in that belief system and not questioning it either.
And we laugh about some of these, but we all have some folk theology. We all do. And it's so hard for them to unlearn it because, man, their whole thought life has been based on these things, right? They got so much time in their life and energy invested in these beliefs. But then, somebody comes along like myself and says, well, when they were talking about by his stripes you are healed, they weren't talking about physical healing, man. They were talking about, being healed salvifically, your salvation. Well, I better be able to back up my words with scripture, right? Because these people that believe that, they believe that for so part of their prayers. Almost every time you hear someone praying for healing, by your stripes I have been healed. By your stripes you are healed. Well, now if I need to try and help somebody see that they're wrong in that thinking, I better be able to go to the scripture and show them, right, in the Bible, why I think that they're wrong. So we got to understand that too, because that person may have believed that for 30 years. And now someone's going to come along and say, you're wrong. When all the other people they pray with say the same thing and teach the same thing.
Wait a minute.
Right. And like you said, the folk theology is not always bad. Like in the Trinity, we believe in the Trinity, but how many of you, I can't say that. Do you all believe in the Trinity?
Yes.
Because not everybody does. Because it's not in the Bible, that word Trinity in the Bible. So, okay, so you believe in the Trinity, but if you have no basis for it, if you can't prove it, it's folk theology. See what I'm saying?
No.
Why do you believe that there's a Trinity when Trinity ain't in the Bible? So if you can't back that up, and really that's folk theology, and it's not that it's bad, right? Prayers for healing, hedges of protection, all that kind of stuff. Folk theology is, here's a quote, folk theology is always folk theology to the degree that people don't have a basis for it. To the degree that anything you learn that you don't have a basis for, that becomes folk theology. Do you understand that? So a lot of us probably have a lot more folk theology than you think. Because you have a lot of beliefs, but you really don't have a basis for it other than, well, that's what pastor said, you know, or that's just what somebody told me. That's what we learned at our Bible study, but I didn't really look into that myself. I just trust my Bible study leader. You understand that? Any other comments on folk theology? All right, another good one, the lay theologian. You all understood that one. You
Oh,
want
yeah.
to read those? You want to read those? That definition there, Brian.
A layperson who constructs his or her theology and who, unlike the folk and tabloid theologian, is more reflective upon learning theological concepts, likely to formulate a system of beliefs which distinguishes between essential and non-essential doctrine, more critical of unfounded traditions, and willing to use study tools.
Okay, I mean, I could do a whole sermon on that. Okay, but let me just make a comment. Number 2, likely to formulate a system of beliefs which distinguishes between essential and non-essential doctrine. So I just want to bring that up because a lot of the things that we talked about, not the Trinity, that's pretty central, right? But let's say, let's say somebody does say that where 2, 3 are gathered, or by his stripes we're healed. Are those things essential or non-essential?
Non-essential.
Non-essential, I believe.
All right. So is it worth being having ironic arguments with somebody, or polemic arguments with somebody about that?
No,
It's never gonna do
So
anything.
that you can sit down and discuss it, right? But there's no use in fighting and, okay, I can't be your friend anymore because you don't believe this, man. This is so just
Yeah.
understand that that's a huge thing. One of the things we got to do is reflect about the things that we've learned, distinguish whether it's a hill to die on or not, and more critical of unfounded traditions and willing to use study tools. So all great things there. And this is where you're coming out of the childlike faith now, and you're starting to take on the meat, because now maybe you're to the point where, not that you want to get into this, because we've already had one person up here take this program. It was probably the worst thing I ever had this dude do, scroll through this program, because he was already so critical before that. And he's just way far gone now. He's off the deep end. But to where you are coming out of the milk of the word and want to get into the meat of the word, not because you want to use this as weapons or be smarter than somebody else or think you're some kind of super Christian now, but because you love Jesus and you really want to understand his word and know more about him, not only for yourself, but to share that with other people too. So ironically, not polemically. Amen.
Right. Amen. That's what. Yep. Well, good morning.
And do you have the workbook?
Not yet. It's supposed to be here. We were supposed
Anne-Marie.
we have it on our phone here.
Okay, and you want to read that ministerial theologian one?
Who?
Sure. A layperson who constructs his or her theology and who, unlike the lay theologian, is 1, educated in theological methodology, 2, able to use study tools and resources at a more effective level, 3, able to openly critique personal theology against competing models, and 4, intent on devoting more time to reflection so that theological integration can take place.
All right. Number 1, theological methodology, like you said, that's what we're doing right here.
Mhm.
And then professional theologian. Somebody want to read that one?
I can read it. Okay, one who constructs his or her theology and makes a living doing so. They usually, one, are didactically purpose toward lay and pastoral theologians. Two, conduct practical or original research. Three, critically evaluate common theological trends and folk theology.
And in that comment, there was professional theologians are often accused of quenching the spirit. Why do you think they received this accusation?
Because they're smart.
Nice.
What they're talking about?
Yeah.
They're supposed to know what they're talking.
Are they dogmatic in what they believe and don't want to hear maybe something that maybe ruffles their feathers a little bit?
Okay, that being in the bad way.
Yeah. And quench the
I
spirit.
think one of the things you said that makes a whole lot of sense is those kind of theologians, they challenge people's wrongful beliefs.
Mm.
Do we like our beliefs to be challenged?
No.
Yeah. Not even in a good way, right? If I was to come to you legitimately and say, well, you know, I heard you say this or whatever, that's really not what the Bible teaches. Can we sit down and go through that? I just want to show you a couple things. You know, even though we're friends and you might listen to what I have to say, I'm still challenging your beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of, all right, maybe. Just anytime you get challenged, man, there's always a wall that comes up a little bit. All right, academic theologian. Somebody want to read that?
Professional theologian who constructs his theology with an overly speculative and critical spirit. His dialogue can usually come only with other theologians. It is often called ivory tower theology.
That's what I mean.
Okay, and those are kind of talking about the positive ones, but they have the gates. You said the gates are closed there. What are some examples of academic theology? Did any of you come up with anything with that question there other than what they talked about on the show? Just to see if anybody did and to make sure you understand this. What are some examples of academic theology? Anybody?
Well, I think I had, a religion class in college that would be considered academic theology. I mean, the professor taught a lot about Christian theology and Buddhism and all kinds of different things. Does that count?
In a way, these are people who are very critical, right? Overly speculative, and you can usually only dialogue with other theologians. I don't know if anybody's come across anybody like that. That person I was telling you about that was very critical and got worse after going through these programs, and now he's going through it a second time. I would probably put him in this category now, even though he didn't go to seminary. And he's basically a newer believer. He came to faith a few years after I did, and I've only been in the faith for 14 years. But he throws his knowledge at you, throws them at you, tries to put himself above you by using words that you don't know. That's an academic theologian in a bad way. Here's a great example. How many ever heard or even know anything about something called the Jesus Seminar? Anybody ever heard of it? The Jesus Seminar. That's basically when a whole bunch of knuckleheads got together who were supposed theologians, and they said that Jesus Christ could not have risen from the grave. So because he cannot have risen from the grave, we are going to interpret all the evidence in the scriptures based upon that. And they held a huge conference, and now they have mega churches running based on the evidences that they had. So that's an example of an academic theologian. Why do you think someone would want to be an academic theologian? Good question.
I put pride.
Yeah,
Very-
it
Yeah,
seems like it's an
prideful.
arrogant thing
That's
almost.
probably the key word, pride.
Mm.
Yes. Rick, you want to read that saying there by Charles Wright?
Theology is for everyone. Indeed, everyone needs to be a theologian. In reality, everyone is a theologian of one sort or another. And therein lies the problem. There is nothing wrong with being an amateur theologian or professional theologian, but there's everything wrong with being an ignorant or sloppy theologian.
I would put arrogant in there too.
Yeah.
All right. How do we do theology every day? In other words, how does our theology influence our daily routine? Some great statements there, right?
Mhm.
Think about God, share the gospel, interpret the Bible. We get sick, defend the faith, plan for the future, choosing schools for our children. We vote, attempt to deal with sin in our lives, decide who we marry. Really, anything that we really think, especially if we're a Christian, right? Because everything we think and do should revolve around prayer,
Mhm.
asking God. We don't always do it that way. Usually, we're praying afterwards, like, "Oh, I messed up."
Yeah. Please get me out of this one.
It's kind of like when we work with addicts, and myself being one. Hey, just call or text me before you hit that bottle or before you hit that pipe. Don't call me afterwards. And what do they always do? Call you.
All you afterwards.
After. Ooh. Nope. Yeah, it's late.
And I particularly like number 8 on the list there, Brian. I think so many people, it comes time to vote and they just throw their beliefs out and pull the lever.
And we don't talk about politics at the Oaks Church. But let's talk about that just for a second, because when we do bring our faith, and I ain't know when to talk about this, okay? Because I've been on, as some of you saw in my post, probation, parole, jail, prison, detention facility since I was 14 years old. I've never been able to vote. I don't know jack about our governmental system, okay? Other than it's messed up.
Yeah, crooked.
I get to thinking now, because now I could be possibly within 2 months close to being let off probation early. So for my first time in my life, I'm 57 years old. I might have the potential to vote, because in the state of Wisconsin, if you had a felony, up until a few years back, you could never vote. But they changed that law in Wisconsin, and now once you're off probation or parole, you can vote. So now I might actually be able to vote in my life. And I believe me, it's been on my mind like huge about how do I do that? Because if we should bring our faith into that, right?
Right.
And hopefully we do. But here's the deal. And this is where a lot of conflict comes in, which is one of the reasons we don't talk about politics and we don't fly the American flag, because we're Christian Americans. We're not American Christians. I said that in one of my messages here recently. So we have certain individuals that we have to vote for. If we vote, we can't just, we can pick anybody. I think there are spaces
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
that,
you-
so but if we're going along, and not just president, but any kind of office, how do we vote? Can we vote? Should we vote? And I'm not asking for an answer. Maybe I am, to help me, but how do we vote when we know that these individuals are probably not Christians, period.
Mhm.
And even though they might have some really moral things that they're going to bring to the table, there's still some things that we don't agree with biblically. Do we still vote for that person?
Well, part of the problem is at the lower bottom level, local level, we can get involved. And if we put Christians in the local level and as they go up the ladder, we'll have Christian people in the Congress.
Right.
And
Which
we
is
need
fine.
to encourage
Yep.
that. And that's what we look for when we vote.
Big time. So do we, and again, not necessarily asking for an answer. So do we just not vote?
No.
No, you can't vote.
When it comes to, like, okay, let's say, presidency is coming up, and we know probably the knuckleheads that are going to be coming into office. We can say what we want about either one of the people that we think are going to be in that position. And we know that they both are going to have a lot of really bad things. Do we still vote for the better one? Or do we back off from that period? Or what do you do with that?
I think in many cases you have to pick
Let's say
which is the worst of the
for
two
president.
evils.
What's that?
The lesser
I
of
think
two
sometimes you have
evils.
to, yeah, sometimes you have to pick the lesser of the two evils, and then, as
So
you
would
often
that be,
say,
would
you
that
have
be
to pick.
considered folk theology, the lesser of two evils?
Well, I think you need to figure, like you say, is this the hill you're gonna die on? And in some cases, there can be one or two critical things that's gonna make you vote for one person over the other. But you're still, they're almost all corrupt. They all have egos that are beyond belief. Anybody who wants to run for most of these offices, unfortunately. But yeah, you gotta pick your core critical issue and sometimes go with it.
So let me ask this question though. Let's say our two presidents that were running for office, one Democrat, one Republican, or whatever office you want to say. But let's say we had Joel Osteen and R.C. Sproul running against each other. Now they're both considered Christians, right? By
Yes.
most people. Some of us know that Joel Osteen is not a Christian, right? I think we can agree on that. And if we
I feel
can't, we
good
need
now.
to talk. My office is open. So what do you even do in a situation like that? Or let's make it even more, because who in the heck's going to vote for Joel Osteen? Well, probably most of the
There's-
population, but
there
because he makes you feel good, right? But
Yeah.
let's say R.C. Sproul running against T.D. Jakes. You think there's going to be some division there with the Christian community and that having to make that decision?
You just look at the platforms that they stand on and what they stand for,
You have to look at all the issues.
right? And then
Right.
Make your decision. based on
Research
that.
is important.
Yep.
Nowadays,
And what is it? And what does it say on paper versus they could both claim they're Christians. Now you pick good examples, but they could claim they're Christian and still be pro-choice. So then that may be your issue to pick between the two right there.
well, they could
Worst
be
comes to
claiming,
worst, vote for me. I could use the retirement fund.
No, I want you all to mark that on your calendars. March 1st, 2023, Brian Holt brought up politics.
Okay.
Probably never happen again. All right.
There we go.
Actually, Brian Z brought it up first.
I just teed it up for Brian number one.
Usually I'm trying to stop it because I think the last time we started a theology class. No, it was church history class. The last time we started, no, 2 church history classes ago. We had some big problems anyway. So the last 2, because of politics, the last 2, we had people leave.
Wow.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, the last 2 quotes, faith seeking understanding, and I believe in order to understand, they said what we are people who have faith, but we begin to seek understanding of that faith. We have belief, but we're seeking to understand that belief. That makes sense, kind of what we talked about in the very beginning, right?
Mhm.
Childlike faith and starting to me. All right, we're doing good. Let's get into 2 discussion questions. Usually we go till 7:30, but
Wait a,
let's pick out 2 discussion questions. Somebody want to just pop one out first that you want to talk about?
go ahead. Fire one off. No, why?
Anybody? Nobody wants to discuss?
well, number 2 there.
That's what I'm, yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
was-
discuss the ways in which you tend to become anti-intellectual with regard into spiritual matters. For example, when the things of the world seem important to me, sometimes you just go with the flow. Again, don't research it, just go with the flow. Become divisive.
Anybody else have a something they wrote for that?
Well, sometimes it's if you start to become anti-intellectual, it's almost like you're starting to get lazy as far as your spiritual walk goes. You're learning. I mean, if you just choose to follow the flow, which we all do at times and things, but I just see where that could be the way it's worded is like the wake up call for me too. It just like, don't get lazy as far as searching it out for yourself. You might have been told something or something is read from the Bible, but seek it out yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, the world sometimes seeps right in there.
So could you legitimately label tabloid theology anti-intellectualism?
Oh, yes.
I believe-
Why it's probably popular, right?
Yeah, but it is popular, unfortunately.
All right, Terry, to you. Number 4, right? Many times I've received emails or Facebook with a short scripture or prayer. The sender then attempts to persuade me to forward the email to a certain number of people. Receive a blessing from God. How does this evidence tabloid theology? Explain.
It's so bogus.
So bogus.
Oh,
I love it.
but there seems
It's
to be people
amazing
that,
how many comments that gets though, right?
oh,
People,
it
man,
does.
they'll jump on that.
Woo.
It really
These-
upsets me is when I see like my friends who actually comment and do it. I'm like, oh,
I mean,
Really?
the fact that we could only receive blessings from God through acts, and we
Right.
don't understand that God really, he blesses everyone, right? But everyone, even Hitler, he blessed Hitler. Why?
Mhm.
makes it rain on the just and the unjust.
Yeah,
That's his
common grace.
prerogative.
When you guys get your theology, systematic theology books, read about common grace. Everybody gets common grace. The fact that we're able to breathe and enjoy smells and food, that's common grace from God, man. Everybody gets it, right? But it's our responsibility to follow God's rules to receive blessings. As a Christian,
By works.
faith, obedience, right?
Yeah.
Humility, confession.
No, back in the old days, we used to call those chain letters.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to copy this letter 100 times and send it to 100 people, and you're gonna get $1 million in the mail.
Yeah, I love that. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, we see. we're the-
Anybody ever do that?
Publishers Clearinghouse.
Well,
Yeah.
I actually helped a friend do that one time because she was so desperate. She was so desperate. I helped her. I was writing no letters.
Well, and you think even there, look at how we've, as society, even dumbed that down. That took effort, like you said.
Yeah.
That took effort to do that.
Right.
Now it's just click forward and, send it to everybody in your email group and you're done, if you want to do it. We've even made that so much easier than it used to be.
Mhm.
True. That's very true.
Well, let's just let's end this with just again another great session. So what impacted you the most in this lesson? What maybe gave you some illumination in this lesson? What stuck the most in this lesson? Or your favorite thing that you learned in this lesson? Let's just go around with this. Annie Marie, why don't you start? You're the first one on my screen.
I just think that, so many of the things that, excuse me, that I believed are not true. And so I want to learn how to learn the truth and how to separate it for myself.
Okay, good, because you just connected that with the first session, right? True. Oh, what you
I'm sorry.
to you?
Oh, well, I actually have come out of that charismatic movement and many, many years ago, but I still find myself thinking or saying things. It's like, oh, no, that's wrong. But it's like it's so there. And I really have to work to break that off, because it's like, and that requires challenging and really leaning into it to say, oh, that's not right. Because there's so many things, and even, just once in a while, something will slip out and I'm like, oh. So that's really the biggest challenge that I was thinking of during when they were describing all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I can get that.
Brian?
For me, I said the most challenging thing here, a thing I learned, was the importance of critical and reflective thinking, and to validate why do we have the beliefs that we do have, to see if they're founded on truth or if they fall in those first two categories we talked about today.
Chedwicks?
I'm like TU over there, just different things coming out of UPC for years ago. I mean, but still some of that really sticks in your brain. Just listening to their lecture and reading through some of this, really finding out how much of that is in me. And I didn't even realize that some of this stuff had such a strong grip, and some of the things, like you said, you get a little defensive. You're just like, no, wait a minute, but it's in a good way, a very good way to be challenged and to learn and to know the truth. And yeah, I just didn't realize how much of some of these things were stuck in my brain and we're there. Do you think you let go of it? So yeah, it's challenging that way, but it's in a real good way.
For me, I found the 6 arenas I found very enlightening. I wasn't never aware of those, and to learn about the tabloid one and the folk one was very interesting. I found 3 and 4 were extremely interesting for me, and learning to digest more of the Bible when reading the Bible. And if I get stuck, to not just go on my King James version, but I'm looking forward to receiving the Net Bible. And we do have another Bible that I'm able to research more instead of just one word and going, okay, the old King James version versus the newer and or different wording of the same verses. Mosquitoes flying around down here. Don't mind us with our hands.
Ah,
No, they're horrible.
But yeah, that's it's been for me, it's been very enlightening, and obviously a huge learning curve I'm in.
Brad?
Well, I never realized how much, I grew up as a Lutheran, but there's so much folk theology in there. I just never realized how much, there was there. And now it makes me question a lot of things that church does.
Rick?
well, I guess I learned that I need to be a little more studious on my information, to dig a little deeper, and maybe from traditional ways in churches, kind of looking, and local churches, even different religions, how there's so much, I guess, would be folk theology, where they're basically going to follow the way that they were taught, not just in the Christian religion, but various other ones.
For me, it's maybe what the gentleman in the front says, the digging in, about tonight that I may think different than you think is going to challenge me to go in and dig into the word. And then the ability to go, it's okay to disagree, and still be friends, and then find that hill, you die on it or not. So this to me is really interesting.
Any comments?
Yeah, I just think that it's something that I've always been interested in, is to find out what does the Bible really say? What does it really mean versus what is being interpreted by somebody? What is actually the truth from the Bible? I think that's what will be important for me, of course, like this is to find out what is really the truth from the Bible versus the truth from man.
Probably, I was probably most challenged by the rabbit story. I'm kidding anyway, but no, so we started out with truth, right? What is truth? And now we're getting into what is theology and different parts of theology, why we do theology. So we're not, again, most of this program, we're not going to be moving into here's some subjects and here's what you need to believe about these subjects. What this whole first course basically is teaching is how we as Christians, how do we develop our mind based on what the Bible says, which is what's the truth? The word. Jesus is the truth. So the word of God is the truth. So so they're working on a development of our mind. And I think just like last week, just another great session. I hope you all enjoy this. Like I said, this is literally, I think, my 10th time I've been through this program, 9 times not teaching it, but what do they call it? Hosting it. And I get something out of every session. But the main thing is that what I want to put forth, because we did lose a person to over intellectualism through this course, is just to understand that this is for our own development, right? I think we talked 2 weeks ago on the pulpit about orthodoxy and orthopraxy. It's one thing to have good doctrine in us, but then we need to put that into practice, not to go out there and use this. Oh, now I'm learning this, this, and this. Let's make this into a sword and go out and start killing people with it, right? But we're doing this because, like I said, we love Jesus, man, and we just want to get this right. And we want to be able to not only get it right ourselves, but to have that confidence of faith when we talk to somebody else to what we believe, but then also having that humbleness, having that humility where Dan doesn't agree with something I say, or our sister, oh, what's her name? Just left. Brain fart. She was here last week. Said she
Tina?
Ooh,
Tina?
no.
Yeah, she was in Idaho.
Oh, Bev.
Bev.
Like Bev, she had an issue with something I said on the pulpit. She came to me with it. We talked about it. And even though, we walked away with not disagreeing in a bad way, but just disagreeing about something, it didn't affect our friendship. Because it wasn't a hill to die on. We're not going to kill each other over it. It's like I always say, we can still be friends and go to the same church. But to have the humility to understand that, because some people are just so ironic with that stuff and they just want to debate and fight. If you don't believe them, well, I'm just going to go to a different church. And if you think they're going to be any more stable there, no, that is a lot of the reason why we have church hoppers. Because they just don't get along. Never going to find a church that agrees with them 100% because it just ain't the way it is. I want to love Jesus, be pleasing to him. The Bible tells us in the book that we're going through right now that in all of these, what's the most important? Love. Love. Even when we bring the truth to somebody, we bring that truth in love. If we don't have love, it's all baseless. So let's keep that in mind as we continue to go through this program and develop our minds, but let's wrap that development around that basis of love for the Lord and love for other people. Amen. Terry, would you pray for us? Especially me. I need a lot of prayer.
Yes. Father God, thank you so much. Lord, you're just so wonderful, and we just worship you and thank you, Lord. Thank you for providing this means of communication because, well, the weather isn't so hot. At least up here it's not. But thank you, Lord, that you have brought a means for us to get together, discuss, and learn more about who you are and how to present you to the world. I just thank you for that, Lord. And I thank you, Lord, for Pastor Brian. He's been such a tremendous blessing personally in my life. And thank you for what you're doing right now with the parole board or whatever that is, all these people who have his life in their hands at the moment. But Lord, we just trust you and we thank you and we praise you, Lord God, because whatever the outcome, we know, Lord, that you are still a sovereign king and there's nothing that happens that isn't without your approval. We just thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Lord, and we praise you and worship you today and always. And it's because of our Lord Jesus Christ who shed his precious blood for us and tore that veil open. It's through him, Lord, that we thank you and approach you, and thank you so much. It's in his precious name that we pray. And everybody said, amen.
We even heard all the doggy hallelujahs.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Arlo had to chime in. Well,
Love you guys. Have a great night and we'll see you hopefully Sunday.
Okay.
Good night.
Brian, thank you,
Bye-bye.
Pastor.